Hello there, welcome back. Hello if you're new. Welcome to my video. I'm gonna give my feedback on the Battlefield 6 beta. I've already given my feedback when I played the multiplayer reveal in this video, but I only had a certain amount of time. I didn't have too much time playing it at the reveal event. So now the beta's been out and I've had plenty of time to play it more. I have some more feedback to give and I'll go over the changes and stuff they have already addressed from other people's feedback. But I'll try not to double dip in the feedback. I'll try and bring up some new feedback to go off of. But before we begin, just as I was recording this video, I got a parcel. I got a delivery. So we're going to open it up here and now. Looks like we got a rucksack here. A little bag. Molly. Got a lot of Molly on here. As well as the Battlefield 6 Velcro tag. Along with all the rolls as a little badge patch. Plenty of pockets and areas to put stuff everywhere. Honestly, a pretty cool bag. Now let's see what's inside here. We got the Battlefield passport. Battlefield tactical passport. On the pages, you can see the maps we played during the beta, ending on Battlefield 6, Attack, Defend. Quite a neat little passport. And last but not least, the flask. Unscrew the top, got a nice little open and close in here. So, a big thank you to EA and Battlefield for sending me this nice little package, as well as inviting me to the reveal event. So, big thank you. Anyway, let's continue on to my feedback on Battlefield 6. But first, I want to cover the changes that have been made or been mentioned from the recent blog post. There's going to be now an emphasis on tap firing or burst firing weapons, so hopefully you'll see less laser beams and more precision and bursting, and maybe it will encourage LMGs to shoot for prolonged use, so you have more of a difference between an assault rifle tap and burst firing, and incentivize LMGs to have a more suppressing prolonged firing. The shotgun, as you know, was quite powerful, so it is getting a nerf. It now will require more pellets to get a kill. Now, I think everyone can agree it was a bit powerful, but I hope it's not gone the other direction of nerfing it to oblivion. Shotguns are supposed to be powerful in CQC and not so good at range. So hopefully it hasn't been nerfed too much, but it's a good change. The time to kill and time to death is being investigated. There hasn't been any changes of it yet. It's simply being investigated. Now, I did find that the time to kill was fine for the most part. The time to death did seem very quick or disproportionate to the time to kill. So it did feel very unfair and unrewarding to get a death. So it just felt even more punishing when it really shouldn't have been. So hopefully that can be fixed and addressed. Now it comes to the movement part. Horizontal speed carried from a slide into a jump has now been reduced. Greater penalty for multiple jumps in a row, and it will lower jump height when being spammed. Firing while jumping or sliding will now result in increased inaccuracy, and parachute physics have been retuned and reduced initial acceleration. Now, for the most part, that gets rid of the quote-unquote Call of Duty movement. Now, these changes are great. I think everyone can agree with this, except from one person. One person might get a little hurt by this. The rooftop camping out of bounds is being fixed. The map rotation within the beta did get a bit repetitive, because you pretty much there were 3 maps, all very CQC, so it did feel very much the same, except from Liberation Peak, because it was the only sort of more open sort of map. It just attracted all the snipers. But there is confirmed to be more open, quote-unquote, Battlefield, larger scale maps to be released on full release. I did like the maps. It did get a bit fatiguing, but that's not a criticism of the maps themselves. It's just they needed more variety in the beta, and they just put too many CQC maps. So that's more of a critique on the beta rather than the actual maps themselves. Rush, I know a lot of people didn't like the player count. To be honest with you, I quite like smaller number game modes, player modes. It put more an emphasis on your squad, and you and your squad have more impact on the game rather than being in a large pool of people where you didn't really make too much of an impact. So I do like smaller, sort of focused game modes you can play with your squad. And Rush used to be a 12v12 mode, so I like smaller mode. I know I know a lot of people like larger game modes, but personally I liked it. The ability to play with both open and closed weapons will remain an option, which is great. Personally, closed weapons is still the best way to be. I didn't mind open weapons, but that brings me on to my next bit. Because the weapons were open, classes didn't have too much of an identity, and it was hard to tell the identities visually. It was difficult to tell whether someone was a scout, assault, engineer, etc., etc. They all did kind of look the same. It wasn't very clear to identify who's who, unless you was right up in their face, even then. So I still think closed weapons are the best way, but to be completely honest, I didn't really mind open weapons too much. I did end up using SMGs on support, so I didn't mind that. Alright, that covers most of the changes that have already been mentioned. I'm going to move on to things that I think haven't been mentioned or brought up before, but this is going to sound really silly, but I think it's the little things that make the bigger picture, and that's spotting. There is no visual feedback for when you're spotting other than just enemy spotted 5 coming up on your screen. You don't point anymore. You don't visually point or anything. So you don't get much feedback if you're actually spotting or whatnot. And it's just a very small visual thing that makes it more appealing. It's going to sound a bit silly, but I don't know why it's gone. Been there for however long. So it's just very strange to not see it again. That brings me on to the second point, the UI. The UI isn't very good. When you're pinging, every ping, if you cancelled it, if you pinged somewhere, if you pinged an enemy, anything, it would go into the kill feed as well. Why it goes into the kill feed, I have no idea. I don't know why that's useful or why that's even needed to be there. When someone pings a location, you're looking for the location, not that they've pinged it. Not that they're cancelling it or pinging somewhere. You actually want to know the location, not that they've done it. So I don't know why that's there. I think that just needs to go. Hopefully there's a setting in to completely remove it, or it's removed by default. The UI is also cluttered when you resupply. You get whoever resupplied you, and instead of it being like multiplied, which it should be like whoever resupplied you 5 times, etc., and it just counts up, it comes up with a whole list like it's an intro to Star Wars. So that could be easily fixed by just having a multiplication, and even if someone else comes along to resupply you, their name can just go underneath and yada yada. The kill feed and assists notification being slightly off to the left is very strange. You kind of just gotta look out your usual area, look out your way to see it. So it's very easy to miss or like understand what's going on out of the corner of your eye. It needs to be more centered to the screen. Not only that, when you damaged vehicles, it would come up with like vehicle damage 25. So it's very easy to misinterpret it as the vehicle has been damaged for 25% or 25 damage, when actually it was the really tiny number near the center of your crosshair. So the UI definitely needs some cleaning up and a rework. I think that was the biggest thing that bugged me, because it's so in your face that it's hard to not critique. The shotgun obviously got a nerf, but the defibrillator, now I did love using the defibrillator. It was very powerful. It is very useful. However, I don't think you should be running at Mach 5 speed around a corner with it fully charged. I think if it's fully charged and like ready to zap, you shouldn't be able to sprint. I did like the defib, but it's a bit too powerful and a bit too cheesy to abuse. Even though I did enjoy using it that way. Vehicles, I think, were quite fun to use and play. Although the lock-ons for helicopters and jets was a bit annoying, and they did seem quite weak, and you'd get one shot by a stinger, etc. But hopefully that will be reduced when the engineers can't carry an RPG and stinger. I know that's been mentioned. They won't be able to carry both of them together. So just have to see how that plays out after it's been changed. The tanks and the LAV's turret speed, like of rotation, was a bit slow. I'm all for having a locked turret speed, so you can't snap it 360 around, but I think it did need increased speed. Just a little bit, nothing too much. The repair stations took way too long and resupplied way too little. So you could go to a repair station and it wouldn't really resupply much, and it would take a very long time to do so. And on some game modes, like Breakthrough, you would push up to the resupply point, try and resupply, and then it just disappears because you've got to move on to the next point. So you don't have enough ammo to push on to the next point. And the resupply is on the objective you need to capture, but you don't have the ammo to do it unless you just use the little you have. So that was a bit frustrating. So resupply points need to give more and need to have a more fixed locations, because I think Breakthrough is just so annoying. I did experience a few bugs, but that's kind of to be expected, and they're gonna happen anyway, so there's no point pointing out all of them. The obvious ones will get fixed. Climbing head height objects or in the environment didn't seem to quite work. If it was like alright if it was below the waist, but there doesn't seem to be like climbing head height sort of things. I don't know if that's intentional or not. IRA just didn't do it properly. I don't know. I thought that was missing. That should be there. There's an addition in Battlefield 1 to 5, and now it seems to be gone. I don't know why. The damage multiplier for headshots is incredibly low. For the DMRs, it was a 3-hit body, or it was a 3-hit headshot. It does do more damage, but it doesn't reward the headshots, which is a bit silly, because you're doing 3 body hits or 3 headshots. So it doesn't really reward the headshots. So I think the headshot multiplier needs to be increased or balanced out better. So it's maybe a 2-hit headshot or something. It definitely needs a buff with the headshot multiplier, because the DMRs were just unrewarding to get headshots with. For the most part, I did enjoy Battlefield 6 beta. Probably even more now. I got to play it more and experience everything at my own pace and speed. Hopefully, they can address as much as they can, because Battlefield 6 is not far away. It's almost a month and a bit until full release. It's a bit concerning we haven't really seen much of the single player Firestorm and Portal other than what's already been shown. So it's a bit concerning on how much of a full product we'll see on release, but it looks promising. Unlike 2042's beta, where I lost interest. It didn't keep my attention. I wasn't really interested. You could see the problems very clearly, and even under that, it was a very bland game. I don't want to be too harsh, because it isn't awful, but it's just very bland. It did a few things right and quite a few things wrong. So, what were the main things that you didn't like about the beta, or did like about the beta? Leave me a comment below on your feedbacks, and until next time, see ya. If you enjoy these kind of videos, you might like my other stuff. Check them out here.